Book of Armij, daughter of Jehovah. Chapter 6. In the beginning of the 2nd year of Armij in Ch.6-8, messengers came before Jehovah's throne, saluting and greeting from Tusk, who now lived under the name Ahura, and submitted the following communication, to wit. 2. Tusk, who hath become Ahura, a servant of Jehovah, and is now God of Elkin, by just judgment of Jehovah, desireth audience with the Most High raised Armij, daughter of the Great Spirit. 3. To this Armij answered, Greeting in love to my brother Ahura, by the grace and power of Jehovah. Come and see me, bringing thy attendants. Now, after the lapse of a few days, Ahura came to Ch.6-8, attended by 1,000,000, escorted by music, and proclaimed according to the discipline of the higher heavens, with heralds and trumpeters. And Armij's host received Ahura and conducted him and with his host within the capital chamber. And Ahura went before Jehovah's throne, saluting on the sign, 2nd plateau. And Armij answered in Nervanian road, Salwatka. She said, 4. In the name of the Great Spirit, whose daughter I am, I welcome thee in love and high esteem. I know all thy past record, and do look upon thee as the foundation of one of Jehovah's brightest sons. Long have I desired that thou should petition to come to see thee, and greet thee in the Father's name. 5. Ahura said, O thou most high chieftainess of hundreds of thousands of years, how can I stand before thee? I know thou hast seen many truants in thy day, and watched their course thousands of years. Thou canst see before me all that had awaiteth me and mine. The past and the future are as an open book before thee. That I have stood before thee and looked upon thee, I am blessed above all things since the day of my birth. 6. Behold, the hand of the Great Spirit hath appeared before me. I comprehend the only road that leadeth unto everlasting resurrections. I know that the one all person must ever stand as the keynote for angels and mortals. Without him, a man is as a ship without a rudder. The seas around about him drive him to ruin in the end. Blessed is he who hath had the experience of this in an early day of his life. Nervous and full of fear is he who hath been tried 2,000 years. 7. Then spake Armij, saying, I perceive thy desires, O Ahura. I understand why thou art before me. Thy wisdom is great indeed. Thou perceivest that thy plateau is in the 2nd removal from the earth. Thou fearest that some of thy hosts will forsake Jehovah and usurp kingdoms of their own, even as thou did in time past. Thou desirest me to raise thy plateau farther away from the corporeal earth. 8. Ahura said, If it be Jehovah's will, even for this purpose, am I come before thee. 9. Now came a great light, bright like a sun, and settled over the throne, enveloping the goddess Armij, and Jehovah's voice spake out of the light to Ahura, saying, 10. My son, why hast thou so little faith? Behold, I am with thee, even as with this my daughter. All thou lackest is faith. Go thou back to thy plateau, and raise thou it thyself. My daughter shall come to thee, and show thee, and thou shalt not fail. To have faith in me is to be one with me. To lack faith in me is to be far removed from me. 11. Ahura said, O Jehovah, teach thou me how to begin to have faith. To find the beginning, there is my stumbling block. 12. Jehovah said, By trying me, there is the beginning. By learning to know thine own power in me, and to know my power in thee, this is the sum of all power and wisdom. By the lack of faith in me, man setteth up himself. By the lack of faith in me, the self-assuming gods build kingdoms for themselves. 13. The failure of man is proof of my power. The failure of all kingdoms is proof of the lack of faith in me, whereby my power is manifested over them. First, after the abjuring of self, cometh the constant manifestation of power through faith, the example of which holdeth the multitude to me and my works. 14. Inasmuch as thou hast suffered fear in thy soul for a relapse in thy kingdom, thou hast opened the door for disaster. Have I not proved this on earth, wherein the faith of a captain leadeth his soldiers unto victory, and his lack of faith breaketh them down in weakness? Think not, O Ahura, that my examples are less with my gods. 15. If therefore my daughter should come to thy kingdom and raise it up, behold, she would lessen thy host's faith in thee, for which reason thou shalt return to Elkin, and proclaim to thy people that thou wilt raise thy plateau. And though millions of them will consider it vanity, and beyond thy power, behold, I will provide unto thee that thou shalt not fail. 16. Ahura said, I perceive thy wisdom, O Jehovah, that which thou hast put upon me. I know I shall accomplish through thee. The voice departed, and Armij spake on her own account, saying, Thou shalt proclaim a day for this great work, and thou shalt send invitations to me and my host, and to my gods and lords, goddesses and lordesses. Send thou, therefore, thy surveyors and inspectors, and determine whither thou wouldst raise thy plateau, and thou shalt be provided from my host whatever assistance thou mayest need. 17. Ahura then saluted, and he and his host departed without the capital chamber, where they rested a while in recreation with the Etherian host, and they entered their ship and departed, and returned to Elkin. After which Ahura appointed the day for the resurrection, and sent messengers throughout Atmospheria, proclaiming what he would do, inviting gods and lords with their attendants to come and spend the day with him. 18. Jehovah spake to Armij, saying, Send thou thy mathematicians to estimate the grade of Ahura's plateau, and send thy surveyors to the place he hath chosen, that thy host may know the power required, and provide thou from thine own host privily suitable stationers, that Ahura shall not fail. For in time to come, Ahura shall be one of my greatest of gods. Chapter 7. Ahura, immediately on his return to his kingdom, set about accomplishing this great labor. 2. Now there were with Ahura many who had been sub-gods and captains and generals under him whilst he was in rebellion against Jehovah and his kingdoms. And when they heard of the proclamation, they said within their souls, What, is it possible Ahura is at his old games? For they knew not his concert with the kingdoms above, and so believed not in his power. 3. Jehovah moved upon Ahura, and induced him to send numerators and graders throughout his kingdom, to take the measure of those who had faith, and of those who had no faith, and of those who had neither faith nor non-faith. And these Ahura graded and numbered, so when the time came, he should know where to place them. Then he numbered the unlearned and dumb, and then the enthusiastic, and he graded them and arranged them also. 4. When he'd had this much accomplished, there came to him one Anuasaj, a former sub-god, and he said to Ahura privily, I love thee, Ahura, and for that reason come before thee. Thou shalt meet only failure and disaster in thy undertaking. How many times in thy mighty kingdom of Tusk did the All-High fail to come to thee? 5. Ahura said, Because of thy love I rejoice in thee, but because of thy lack in faith I deplore thee. How long will it be before angels and mortals understand the Father and his kingdoms? Behold, in the days of Tusk I labored not for Jehovah, but for myself and my exaltation, and for the exaltation of my kingdom from mine own ends. Hence the All-High came not to answer my prayers. Now, in this matter, I am doing that which is not for me, nor for my kingdom, for mine own sake, but for the Father's sake only. And I know he will not fail me. 6. Anuhasaj said, Hath it not been from the time of the ancients till now, that certain ones say that by prayer and faith all things are possible, assuring us, moreover, that by such are all things accomplished on earth and in heaven? And yet, who hath not witnessed more failure than success? I do not desire to discourage thee, O Ahura, but I know so well the lack of faith on the part of all men, and that to get oneself weaned away from self is the weakest talent in the soul, and for which reason, too, it is ultimately the greatest glory. But this would seem to me expedient, to have Penta Armij and her host do this resurrection for thee. 7. Ahura said, Even thine every thought have I already fulfilled. And through the chieftainess came the Father's voice, commanding me to do this resurrection on my own account. 8. To this Anuhasaj made no reply, but in his soul he was not free from the tetrarchs, being jealous that Ahura had advanced him in obtaining the Father's commands. But Ahura perceived it not, and he said to Anuhasaj, The host of Elkin have been numbered, and there are 4,500 million. And within the grades above Essyans there are 170,000 schools, 230,000 colleges, 400,000 factories, and 200,000 hospitals. 9. Behold, on the day of resurrection, I shall have the Handowacha recreation for my host. Let this then be thy labor, to have the matter proclaimed throughout Elkin. Anuhasaj said, By Jehovah's leave and thine, I am satisfied. 10. Thus ended the matter, and Ahura remembered afterward that Anuhasaj had not answered positive acceptance, and so Ahura feared, and to make doubly sure, called Evasan, and committed the same charge to him. 11. Now when the time came, lo and behold, Anuhasaj fulfilled not his part, but Evasan did. And Evasan moreover came to Ahura, bringing answers from all the departments. 12. In the morning of the day of the resurrection, Ahura sent for Anuhasaj, and inquired concerning the matter. Anuhasaj said, Nay, I issued not thy proclamation nor thy invitation. For I reasoned on the matter, saying to myself, If the resurrection be a failure, then would it indeed be better that the ignorant not know of it. 13. Ahura said, To do well one's own part, is this not the highest? Anuhasaj said, It is the highest. Even so have I done that which seemed the highest in mine own sight. 14. Ahura said, The resurrection was not for thee nor for me, but for the host. For thou had previously admitted that the resurrection of this plateau was the highest, best thing to be done. Because it seemed impracticable in thy sight, thou wert not justified in withholding thy hand. Thou should have striven to accomplish that which was for the universal good, not even whispering thy distrust to anyone. Then, had it failed, thine own soul had been clear. For which reason Jehovah came to me, and I was admonished to depute Evasan in thy stead, and he hath fulfilled my commands. 15. Anuhasaj made no reply, but went away in displeasure, and for the present the matter was dismissed. 16. Ahura has sent invitations to the lords of all the divisions of the earth, asking them to come, bringing their attendants with them. Of these the following came to wit: Ohwa, lord of Ch.6-8, Hakapa, lord of Paradise, Lugam, lord of Armij, Jassi, lordess of Speta, Ami, lordess of Cosmon, Horam, lord of Flu, and Putse, lordess of Sinyat, each bringing 1,000,000 attendants, besides hundreds of thousands of visitors of lower grade. 17. Penta Armij with her visitors, Aux and Sewagon, and Hauha, and 5 million attendants, and 30 million visitors from Ch.6-8 came in an avalanche made for the purpose. 18. The place of removal which Ahura had decided to inherit was in the second belt below Meteoris, known in Atmospheria at that time as Varapishanaha, which laid betwixt the land of Vidnu and the star region known as the horse and calf pastures, a heavenly place, uninhabited. From Elkin to Varapishanaha was 14 hours in grade 25, which was the average of Ahura's host, but its enlargement in the upper belt would be as 15 to 9. 19. Pensa Armij and her host were the first to arrive in Ahura's dominion, for she had determined that nothing should lead to failure in Ahura's enterprise. Through her advice, Ahura stationed water-bearers the entire distance of travel, lest in the excitement the Drujas might run into knots or riot. For such is the nature of darkness, both on earth and in the lower heavens. The low delight to dwell in a city or near a place of filth, if companionable, rather than to go to a place of isolation where improvement is possible. 20. Jehovah had said to Ahura, Suffer not thy Drujas to know thou wilt remove them so far from the earth. Confide thou only with the wise in reference to thy destiny. Pensa Armij had said to Ahura, Provide thy Drujas a holiday and parade, with rites and ceremonies. And Ahura perceived how the matter had to be, and he apportioned 80 million of his host to provide parades, rites, and ceremonies for the Drujas of his host. And of these Drujas, ranking below grade 5, there were 1,200 million, being such angels as knew not the left hand from the right, nor could remember to count 5 from one day to the next. And yet the next 1,000 million, rating below grade 12, knew so little more. They were scarcely wiser than the beast in the field. 21. Pensa Armij, seeing these, exclaimed, O Jehovah, how long must Ahura labor with these in order to raise them to grade 99? Oh, that they who set themselves up as gods knew what lay before them. Oh, that leaders of men knew. Oh, that mortal kings and queens knew the bondage that they laid down for themselves. What a work in the lower heavens for them before they can ascend. And yet, O Jehovah, thou art just. Someone must labor with these unfortunates. It is well that man aspireth to be king and Lord and God. Chapter 8. When they were assembled for the resurrection, the thousands of millions, Pensa Armij went and stood at the right hand of Ahura, and next to her stood Aux, and on the left hand stood Sewagon and Hauha, and the voice of Jehovah fell upon Ahura, saying, Extend my lines to the 4 corners of the world. Give into my labor the highest grades. 2. Accordingly, the marshals drew the line on the plateau, and the host of Etheria stood equally toward every corner, arranged in phalanxes of 10 million, each having the form of a quarter of a circle, leaving the lines of power from center to circumference, and the distance thereof was equal to the width of Vidnu on the corporeal earth. And the center of the plateau was high raised, so that Ahura stood on the highest place, which lay near the capital of the council. 3. Now it so happened that the jealous Anuhasaj stood 12th on the east line, being the 13th from Ahura's left hand. Pensa Armij said to Ahura, Behold, the line is shattered. Ahura said, I feel nothing. How sayest thou, the line is shattered? She answered him, saying, He who doeth Jehovah's work must deal as Jehovah dealeth. Only those who are in concert with thee must labor with thee. Otherwise, thy best endeavors will be thwarted. Ahura said, 4. O thou far-perceiving goddess, in my much love and sympathy, I admitted Anuhasaj to the lines. He hath been my best friend. Pensa Armij said, Thou shalt know but one friend, Jehovah. 5. Ahura perceived, and he now felt the shattered place, and he sent his chief marshal to Anuhasaj to bring him from the rank. And when Anuhasaj was before Ahura, the latter said unto him, Because thou servest thyself, thou shalt not stand in line. Behold, There is but one to serve, even Jehovah. And Jehoshaphat said, A joy upon thee and thy scheme, because thou art powerless. Thou hast singled me out as an excuse before these gods and goddesses. 6. Ahura made no answer, but spake before Jehovah, saying, Give me strength for thy children's sake, O Father. Behold, I have cut loose the foundations of Elkin. With high extending cords, I have bound her to Varapishanaha. By virtue of thy power in me, I will raise her up. In thy name, let my host in will command. Arise, upward, onward, O Elkin, arise, upward, onward, O Elkin, arise, upward, onward, O Elkin. 7. With the third enunciation, which came from the thousands of millions in concert, behold, the plateaued moved from her foundation, turned a little, then slowly upward rose. Loud shouted all the inhabitants of the heaven. With their own universal will, the Great Spirit stretched forth his hand and raised up the heavenly continent. Even as with his hand he toucheth a corporeal continent and sendeth it beneath the ocean, so raiseth he his heavenly places toward his emancipated worlds. Yea, because of his Spirit upon his people, they desire it risen. With them and him all is one. 8. And now the gods, with unbroken will, held their places as it were a day for the corporeal earth, and not a god or goddess from the single purpose in thought strayed a moment of time, and no distracting thoughts intervening. For such is the will and mastery of gods over their own thoughts. Even then, to keep up the concerted force joyously, those who had the Drujas in charge set the games and tournaments going, with racing and music, such as should leave not one idle moment for all the host of Elkin, nearly 5,000 million. 9. Upward and onward rose a great plateau, making straight course for Varapishanaha. Ahura stood in the eyes of the unlearned populace as the greatest and most masterly of all the gods. One alone, even Anuhasaj, stood a while transfixed with disappointment, even chagrin, even hoping some mishap to Jehovah's proceeding. And finally, he went wandering about, sore and out of sorts with all righteousness. 10. Thus was raised the heavenly place, and no longer called Elkin, but Varapishanaha, home of Ahura and his host. And now, when they were securely established in the place, and the gods and goddesses broke from line, they all came greeting to Ahura. And, even in the same moment of time, a messenger came from God, who was with Brahma on the corporeal earth, bringing to Armij the following commandment by proxy to wit. 11. In Jehovah's name, give thou a throne and crown to Ahura for me, and in my name. I promise him thus. 12. The light came upon Armij, and Jehovah spake through her, saying, Behold, the work of my hand, O Ahura, my son. In the substance of heaven fashion I thee a crown and high-raised capital, and with mine own hands weave thee a crown. From this time forth thou shalt be my God, and I will abide with thee. 13. While the words were being spoken, the throne rose up before Armij's hands, and a high-raised capital came and stood over and about the throne. And there descended from the heavens above bows of lights and color, which in Armij's fingers were shaped and woven into a crown, which alighted on Ahura's head. And there went up from the host a universal shout of praise and thanksgiving. Then broke in the trumpeters 7 million, and after they played a while, the Esenars chanted, the concerted host of Jehovah. 14. Thus was founded Jehovah's heavenly kingdom, Varapishanaha. Thus established Ahura his dominions, where rebellion and secession were cut off forever. And Armij gave to Ahura 1,000 messengers, and opened a roadway to Ch.6-8. Ahura ascended his throne, and the gods and goddesses saluted him, God of Varapishanaha, and they and their attendants departed to their several places.